We're looking at the TV, and one of the towers went down. My dad points at the TV, and he's screaming. And I'm like, why are you screaming? He goes, Salman's down there.
This is a day when all Americans from every walk of life unite in our resolve for justice and peace.
Like so many faiths, Islam has always been part of our American family.
Definitely, he's an American hero through his actions. Lived up to the American values.
He was one of those brave first responders who tragically lost his life in 9/11 terrorist attacks almost a decade ago. Mr. Hamdani bravely sacrificed his life to try to help others on 9/11. After the tragedy, some people tried to smear his character.
One of the flyers that was being spread around by someone from the New York Police Department saying that Sal was a possible terrorist wanted by the FBI.
The heading of the New York Post was missing or hiding. I never lost faith in my country, America, like I never lost faith in my faith, Islam. I'm originally from Pakistan. I came to America in 1979, February 3rd. Salman was like 13 months old. He came with me. My husband had come a year earlier. We worked hard over here. My husband had his own business, a small, grocery store, the candy store that you see, in Manhattan.
He's the eldest brother, right? So he's 6 years older than me. And then I have another brother in the middle. I'm the youngest. And I have another one in the middle who's 2 years older than me. And me and the middle brother, Adnan, we would be best friends, but then worst of enemies, right? And we'd end up fighting a lot. So, when we'd go places, we'd have to, me on one window and Ani on the other, and then the Salman in the middle so we wouldn't fight.
When did I meet Salman? Really got to know him in 1997. And that's when we started hanging out, doing all this stuff, playing billiards, doing sporting things, like playing softball, baseball, basketball, football.
He was the baseball coach and basketball. And this was a group of young boys of all different faiths and, ethnicity.
He was there to help you or guide you, whatever it was. That was the type of person he is. He wanted to just help and guide people more than anything.
He was very religious. Obviously, if you're a Muslim, the first thing you do is you actually care for people, help out people. And obviously, always, it doesn't matter what you're going through or whatever you are, you always have a smile on your face.
One thing I never heard my brother do was complain, which is weird, because that's my wife, I complain.
When they were young, my husband put them into an Arabic school to learn the Quran in Brooklyn, and we lived in Brooklyn that time. So Salman said, Abu, we don't know Arabic. Everyone else there talks Arabic. So we don't enjoy it, and we're not learning anything. What we did was we gave him and Adnan the Quran in English. I remember once Ani got injured playing with his friends, and I think he broke his nose. And he went back to Binghamton. And then Salman went there the following weekend, and he took the Quran and he referred to a chapter, a verse where it says, life is a test. You think you're going to make it to heaven without being tested? He was the person of very strong faith.
Well, he took organic chemistry from me, one of probably 100 students in the classroom. I don't have any strong memories of him in the classroom. And then when he decided that he wanted to do research and came to me, he joined the lab and wound up working in the lab for 3 years. And that was really when I got to know him well. He was very talented as an undergraduate researcher. He really understood the chemistry that he was doing. He understood what was going on in front of him when he was doing the reaction, so if something went wrong, he would know how to fix it. And he could really, you could talk to Sal the way you would talk to a graduate student. He was really good. Sal was a big personality. He was very Americanized. And I had no idea that his first name was Muhammad until he handed in his first paper, and I asked, who is this person? He was Sal to everyone, not even Salman.
He never used to preach. You know, if you asked him a question, he would inform me or whatever, but he wasn't imposing religion on anyone. He wouldn't just look out for me and my other brother, he would look out for our friends as well in the neighborhoods. Because that type of person is very rare and far and few in between. Now I was lucky that he was my brother.
If they had an argument, the three brothers, the way to get to him was, you can never run for the presidency, because he wasn't born here. I asked him once, Salman, what is the Star Wars saga? And he jumps back and he goes, Mama, you don't know what Star Wars saga is? You are not an American. And his license plate that year he read Young Jedi. Y-U-N-G, Young Jedi. So I guess he saw himself as the Jedi, you know. This was his country. He didn't know any other country. A 13-month-old doesn't remember where he or she was born or came from. He was just proud of his country because he was an American. Salman had just graduated that year, 2001, in the summer, and Zishan had graduated from high school that year.
He just had constant ideas about what he was going to do. Was it going to involve the chemistry? You know, the FBI was one point. No, I think in the end he decided he wanted to go to medical school. He was working at Rockefeller in a biochemistry lab as a lab tech. It was certainly a good way to enhance his credentials.
He had joined the NYPD Academy, and he was trying to become a physician. So when you apply to the physician's, application, they want to see, what extracurricular activities you have done. He became a cadet. He took the certification course, of being a first responder through the fire department of Bayside.
The last time I saw Sal was August 2001. He came to stop by and tell me what he was doing, and then he went off to work. He had been out at a club or something like that the night before, and so I said, but Sal, you don't drink. He said, well, but I can still have fun, even though I don't drink. And that was the last time I saw him.
Last time I saw him was in my wedding. He was having so much fun dancing at my wedding. I mean, that's all I remember. I couldn't speak to him because it was, he was excited and he danced. He liked, he liked to have fun.
What was your last conversation with him?
Oh, that night,
September 10th.
September 10th, when his father was not feeling well and he came down to check his blood pressure, and he said everything seems to be fine, it's just a side reaction of the medication, and if something goes wrong, call me again. So that was 3:15 that night, that morning a.m. I saw him.
Oh, so really 9/11?
Yes.
Yeah, 3:15
yes.
a.m., 9/11.
Right. It was a beautiful, crispy, clear day, and I remember saying, such a beautiful day, very clear.
It sometimes takes me a while to start talking about it.
9/11.
It's very emotional.
It was a crazy, crazy day.
I saw the 9/11 movie from inside the building. On the morning of September 11th, I remember waking up and the shuttle was outside of our hotel at 7 a.m. I remember getting to the World Trade Center around 7:30, and by 7:45, we were upstairs on the 61st floor.
So I had class at 9, so I think I left at 7:45. And I went to my brother's room because I borrowed his phone charger that night, and I put it back. When I saw him, he was still sleeping.
Me and my wife left for work around 5:30, 5:45. See, I'm an electrician, so I'm working. She dropped me off by the highway, and I went about my business.
At 8:45, we had I believe it was either a 10-minute or a 15-minute break. During that time is when I noticed that there was some commotion.
I had a couple buddies that were there, you know, that I made friends with. They wanted to check out the restaurant way up on top. And I was like, you know, why don't we just go to dinner there after everything's done? Why do we want to race? Because the break was for 15 minutes. I was checking out the window, outside the window, and I don't know if you've ever been in those towers, if you've ever been that high, but being up there and to see, looking down at the Statue of Liberty, you know, to be in the clouds legitimately as if you were in a plane was unbelievable to me. And I remember looking down and seeing a huge yacht, and it had helicopter pads on it and whatnot. Oh, shit! And all of a sudden, a fireball came firing across the window. And when that happened, I had taken a step back, and everybody rushed the window. And the way it was for me, everything was like very slow motion, like whoa, and I'm trying to process what happened. The manager comes out and he says, "What happened?" And then in that instant, everything became fast motion again. I said, "The building next door just blew up." And he says, "What do you mean it blew up?" I said, "Look," because at that point you can see all the debris, the papers and everything on fire.
I remember seeing from the window what I thought to myself was, what I later found out was debris, but I thought that it seemed like someone threw some litter or garbage from the higher floors.
He asked us to go back to our offices. And I went to my office, I grabbed my belongings and I was leaving. I was gonna get in the elevator and he says, "Where are you going?" I said, "We're gonna have to evacuate no matter what happens." I said, "You didn't see what I seen." He said, "Then take the stairwell."
Folks were heading towards the stairwell. So after kind of seeing what was going on, I started following everyone down the stairwell.
She called me, I found her making a mistake around 8 something. I don't remember exact time. She goes, "You know what's going on?" My wife called me from school. You know what's going on? I'm like, "No, I have no idea what's going on." She needs to go to the roof and take a look what's going on upstairs. I said, "Okay."
I drove my youngest daughter to school, dropped her off, and then turned on the radio, and that was the first clue I had that something was going on. Right literally at that time, the news reports were all over the place. You know, some stories about a small plane flying around the World Trade Center, maybe it had hit it, no one knew what was going on.
When you're in a situation like that, you don't know if it's a twin engine plane or if what the magnitude of the situation was.
When we got down to the 40th floor, a gentleman on the intercom came out and said, "You guys can go back to your offices, that it was just an accident and everybody is safe." I said, "There's no way I'm gonna stop." There were a lot of people like me that said there was no way that they were gonna stop.
It took me probably 18 or a little bit less than 18 minutes to get down 21 flights of stairs. And I got down to the 40th floor. A couple guys were with me who I didn't know. They said, "There's an elevator here." And within a minute, I was on the ground floor. As I was exiting the building, I was in the revolving door and I pushed the revolving door, and as I was still in the revolving door, I remember a loud noise above my head.
And on the 24th floor, that's when the plane went through our towers. And mind you, we didn't know what was going on. So personally, I thought the tower next door kind of fell on top of us, or parts of it did. Everything was like a movie to me that day. And when that plane hit our tower, you know, it shook us. It was powerful enough to where it pushed you around, and the tower was swaying. I'll never forget that. So that part of it was very dramatic, if you will. But it was the entire flight down was very orderly, and it was very, but it was, you could tell the anxieties were running high.
After that happened and the explosion happened and I was on the ground, debris was falling in front of me. I just remember that there was utter destruction in front of me. The people that were 50 yards, 100 yards in front of me, things were falling on them. So I remember just getting up and running inside to save myself.
They got us out, the second floor. They bring us out. We run down the stairs through the lobby. We see elevator shafts blown wide open, come back up another flight of stairs and out a back door.
As I turned around and I went inside the building, those next couple of minutes are actually a blur to me. And I was really scared for my life. So those next couple of minutes, I was actually just running through the building, through the World Trade Center, ground floor, and just following no particular group, and just wherever people were running, I kept running, not knowing that shelter is actually outside the building.
You know, I kept running until I could, until I could do nothing. I completely lost all adrenaline. It wasn't even where I stopped and I couldn't breathe, everything just, and I had black phlegm coming out from all the inhalation of the smoke. But the breakdown of what, maybe 7 or 8 blocks of running was full speed after the 61 stories. And all of that exhaustion that I should have been feeling the whole time came out in that split instant.
Where everyone else was running, I kept running and following them, and eventually I exited the building. I probably got about a block or two away when I kind of stopped and turned around. Even though they were massive airlines, airplanes that had went in the building, from the naked eye, they looked very small. And I still couldn't really comprehend what happened. And listening to people who were there, they said, no, two huge planes went in the building. And that's when I really kind of was shocked and really kind of understood the gravity kind of the situation, and that that I'm in the middle of something huge and something historic. And
I remember all the cars were stopped in the middle of the street, just looking at everything in awe. That's when the Pentagon was hit, because someone on the radio came out and said, the Pentagon has been hit, ladies and gentlemen, we are under attack. And I'm thinking to myself, what the heck is going on? And I kept walking, and there was this huge intersection where you can just sit on cement, and it was kind of, they had tons of trees and flowers within this intersection. So I sat there, and about 10 minutes later, the tower collapsed.
There was no time to even think. By the time when that was happening and all of the debris started coming, we had to run. At one point, it was dark where I was because all of the debris and all of that had taken over the streets. So it was just a scary time, and we knew we had to go in the opposite direction. We all were anticipating the next building to come down.
The college here is the highest point in Queens, and you can walk over to the library and see the World Trade Center. So I went, and one building had already fallen. The subway kept running underneath the World Trade Center for a long time, even after the first tower had fallen. So whether he got there by subway or used his police badge to get a ride, to the World Trade Center, somehow he did it. No one had any sense, in fact, that the second building was in any danger of falling. I have no memory of whether we knew there had been a second plane. At that point, I watched for a while and thought, oh, there's really nothing I can do. I started walking away, and that's when the second building fell.
I'm a teacher, high school. When I came out of the classroom at 10, I saw teachers huddled, in the hallway, talking hush, hush. So I thought maybe the superintendent has come, surprisingly, and something went wrong. So I went over there, and they were talking about the towers being attacked and burning, and one has fallen. So I said, no, this is something very wrong. I don't think I heard the right thing. So I go into the teacher's lounge, and I call my husband.
I came home, my dad was home. He was on the phone with my mom, and she was at school, and we're looking at the TV, and one of the towers went down. My dad points at the TV, and he's screaming.
The first thing that came out of his mouth was,
Salman's
Salman
down
is
there. I'm like, how do you know that?
Why do you think your father knew he was there?
he knew his kid, man. Like, he knew Sal was gonna help. You know, he's a police cadet, EMT, wanted to be a doctor, you know, always looking to help people.
And then we tried to call him on his cell phone. He wouldn't respond, he wouldn't respond. Everybody was calling him, his father, his brothers. And then I came home by 4:30 because we had to stay by until all the students were gone. And the cell towers were not working. They had collapsed. So I was not worried. I said, when the cell towers go up, he will call.
My dad is just home. You know, he gets phone calls from family or whatnot. I have friends that are, you know, in their neighborhood, so I go out with them, right, just to, you know, I don't know, there's nothing to do at home, you know. I was like, let me get out of here. And I got home a little while later, and my brother's still not home. And then, obviously, Manhattan was shut down, right? But it wasn't that it wasn't home, we didn't get a phone call. Usually, you know, he'd give us a call, and my mom comes home with my dad's brother, because they both worked in Manhattan, and I open the door, and I see her coming up the driveway, and I open the door, and I'm like, I go, you know, I go, you know, I opened the door and I said to her, like, I just at home yet. And she was worried. But she looked up at me and said, no, don't worry, he'll be home.
But then I think the cell towers went back up right 10, 11, and he did not call. Then I got worried. We confirmed, got the news from his office that he never reported to his job.
And the next morning, I come to know that Salman is missing. And that's when I knew he probably went there, and, you know, I hope he's okay. I hope he still is somewhere.
The next day was when we started hearing reports of what had really gone on. There was a wall that had been set up somewhere in Manhattan where people were putting up pictures of their missing family members. So that was when we found out that he hadn't come home that night.
You know, we're cousins just hanging out, all boys, right? 4 of us, and, you know, at this point, we haven't heard anything. Like, phones work, so I told him, I was like, this, you know, the last time we saw him may have well been the last time we will ever see him. We cried a little bit, but that was it, you know, we understood, I guess. You know, like, we hoped, we prayed, you know, whatever would happen. But
I remember you know, going to services at my temple that Friday night, and my oldest daughter, who was a senior in high school, was with me, the one who really actually knew Sal the best, and that was when I finally told her that, you know, that he was one of the missing ones.
The next morning we went to his job to get his cell phone, and we took the security guard said, you know, there's nobody in the building, but I'll go and retrieve his cell phone, and he brought it to us, and he said, I have a friend who works in the FBI, I'll tell him to look for Muhammad. And I'm saying, where does the FBI come in? Such a big tragedy has happened, and I'm looking for my son. Why would he contact the FBI? So the very moment, you know, like, I got a taste of the prejudice. The thought that he is not alive never crossed my mind. It did not cross my mind for the longest time. You know, and then we went back home. The next day was a Thursday. We went to the armory to register the missing people and gave our DNA, and we posted flyers, and then we went searching for him near Ground Zero. Nobody was allowed to go inside except the first responders. And we realized the futility of searching for him over there. It was very bad, the atmosphere, you know. full of, like phosphorus and ammonia. It would cut your lungs. And then someone told, that we thought maybe he's in a hospital and he's lost his memory or he cannot speak or something. So we went searching in hospitals.
One of the flyers that was being spread around by someone from the New York Police Department saying that Sal was a possible terrorist wanted by the FBI. And the person who did this was clearly connected to the police department because it had Sal's police ID photos.
The heading of the New York Post was missing or hiding. Very sensational, like, like a cloud of suspicion, speculation was cast on him that he was seen at 11 a.m. he was seen at the Midtown Tunnel. So he's not to be found at the bottom of the rubble, but he's out there making mischief because he has police ID. And then neighbors are saying, we did not know we are living next to a terrorist.
My immediate response was actually to call the FBI and tell them this is not possible. This, whatever has happened, this person is not a terrorist. But there were reports in the media of imaginary sightings of Sal. Even the New York Times picked this up. It wasn't just the Post and the Daily News, which were, sort of one associated this sort of thing.
Everyone was like, sue the Post. And I'm like, we have people in the neighborhood, in our neighborhood, both in my dad's store and in Queens, questioning us about that shit. I'm sorry for cursing, but I wanted to curse them all out. But like, how dare you? Like you don't know this. Like what the hell? We live here the whole time. Are you crazy? Like, get out of here. And we put up missing signs for him, and they were torn down.
There was a big dragnet of Muslims between the ages of 15 and 35. So I thought he was detained.
She was reaching out to everyone because there were rumors in the Muslim community that the police and FBI were rounding up Muslim men, and so she was hoping that Sal had been arrested.
And for me it was, he could not have made it down that time. The trains were stopped, denial.
Like, I knew my brother would help, but I never thought until my dad said that, hey, my brother could be down there. Not for 1 second. Because I didn't think of my brother being down there. I didn't think it was possible because it was 7:45 in the morning when I left and he was still in bed.
Because then he takes the train into Manhattan, the 7 train, you can see the towers burning on the south. So instead of going up north, he went down to hell. Salman worked at 65th Street and 1st Avenue. And this was like 4 miles down south. I said, Salman couldn't be there. And then I was crying, and he said, he used to call me Mane, and he said, Mane, the 2nd tower is coming down. And I found myself crying. And then I wiped my tears, and I said, why am I crying? There is no one there that I know. And then a few months down the road, we were informed that that is where they found his remains by the North Tower, which was collapsing at the moment when my husband and I were talking. And I guess Salman's life was being extinguished. In that moment, we were together. It's our Muslim tradition to bring the body home. It doesn't happen in America, but I wanted to bring you home. I wanted to send him from home. So that's his father standing, receiving, they're bringing his, casket into the house. We all made a prayer, a dua. We sat him in the living room. And then from here we went to the mosque in Manhattan.
To do what he did was a heroic act, even though I really do not believe that at the time he thought he was doing something heroic. He was doing something to help. And I guess it's mostly only when you die that you become a hero.
We had his funeral on April 5th because my family had to come from, all over.
I remember everything from that day. It was good. People were supportive and they were there for him.
So I went along with my research group, and a number of faculty from Queens also went. It was the first time all of us, except for one of my students who was Muslim, had ever been in a mosque. The congressman, I certainly spoke, and there were hundreds of police cadets there.
Bloomberg came to his funeral and Kelly came, and Kelly said he was a hero. We don't know how many lives he saved. And Bloomberg said everybody was running away from the towers, but he ran to the burning towers and gave his life. Thank you, Mrs. Hamdani, for giving the city of New York your son. In 1999, there was someone from a friend circle who was a lieutenant with the NYPD. He died of cancer. So we went to his funeral and he said, "Mama, that's honor. That's how I want to go, under the American flag." And that's how he did.
My dad, he loved my brother so much. Every night, he used to sleep in the living room on the floor and leave the front door unlocked. After 9/11, say, "My son's coming home." That door stays unlocked. Every day. Even when he came home from the hospital with cancer, he'd still stay on the floor in the living room, waiting for his son.
Even after the funeral?
Till the day he died. He would just like, "My son's coming home."
He was angry at God. He was very angry. Very angry, and I tried my best, to bring him out of. I said, "You have 2 more boys, get attached to them." Not that he wasn't attached, but spend some time with them more. And he never came out.
September 11th, 1983, my father's dad passed away from cancer in Pakistan. I was born September 12th, 83, and then I told my dad in 2003, I was like, 2001 was 9/11 and Baijan passed away. And I remember his face telling him this. We were in the store and he was behind the counter of the store and I was in front, and I told him, and he said, he literally went, he said, "Just like this, I didn't even think of that." Like he's like, "Oh." And I think I told him because I want him to know that Baijan's death, Salman's death, was more than just the run-of-the-mill of, I'm not saying everyone dies for no reason. I just want him to know that it's more than, his death means a lot more than you think. It has an effect on this world. My dad said to my mom, he's like, "One thing you've done for me is you've raised me 3 wonderful kids." I was lucky to have Salman as an elder brother, and I'm luckier to have my middle brother around. Because, our relationship, my mom, my brother, and I, is totally different than any other family's relationships. When it comes down to it, we're always going to be real close to each other.
We try to live with his happy moments of life. Thank God we had him for 23 years. They honor him in their own ways. Zishan has named his daughter after him, Salma, and his football jersey, Adnan honors it by wearing it sometime. Last December, on his birthday, they both broke down. And Zishan said, because they had both become fathers, so they couldn't comprehend how difficult it is. One cannot until and unless you become a parent. So Zishan said, I'm so sorry, Mama, you lost your son. And Adnan didn't say anything, but I knew.
Muslim Americans were first responders. The former police cadet who raced to the scene to help and then was lost when the towers collapsed around him.
I wonder if you could describe your meeting with President Obama.
Meeting with him was validation that my country is standing with me. And then he said, tell me about Salman, what did he do, how was he? And during the conversation, somehow I said, if only Salman knew that I'm meeting with you, he would be so happy. How many people have the standing that Salman has now? We will go silently, but he has glorified not only America and his faith, but that good deeds matter. Let these moments, of tragedy and adversity not pull you down, but become your strength. Take your child's loss or your parents' loss or your siblings' loss as a fire in your belly and do something good for the society.